You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Again, folks, to understand the impact of judges, let's go to New York. All inmates in New York's jails and prisons, all of them, folks, are being required for a vaccine. This is a result of a judicial ruling. Now, folks, look, this is, again, I don't know how many times I can explain to people why these things matter. But the reality is they do. Justice Allison Tuitt of the New York State Supreme Court said there's no acceptable excuse for this deliberate exclusion. Governor Cuomo's office, Andrew Cuomo's office, responded to the ruling today by expanding the state's coronavirus vaccine eligibility to include all incarcerated individuals. According to the New York Times, 1,100 prisoners have tested positive for the virus since the beginning of last month, and 5 have died. No better example, Mustafa, why judges, the right judges, matter.
You got to have the folks in place. When you don't, you get all these bad rulings. You get all these things that put us further and further behind the 8 ball, if I can say it that way. And COVID, this is just another example of why we need to make sure that we have everyone in place on the judicial side, on the legislative side, on the executive side. You got to understand how all this stuff comes together to actually end up helping to protect our communities or to create these disparities that can, that can be devastating.
It makes no sense in this country, frankly, Kelly, how people act like, oh, they're prisoners. Okay, it doesn't matter. No vaccines. Y'all can be last. No. In fact, because if you're actually a worker in the prison, you can be infected and take it home.
Yeah, the prisoners are people too, period. That is what it comes down to. There was a surge in the prisons regarding COVID-19 infections. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw a lot of stories come out about how prisoners were, stuck with like one mask for weeks or no mask at all. Or, if they were at all infected, they were never sequestered or, quarantined. So the infection spread throughout the prisons. But they're people too. And what's more important, a lot of these prisoners get out, by way of parole or exoneration or whatever. And they're still a person. I'm going to keep reiterating that. They will leave, a lot of them will leave prison by way of whatever type of release. And they need to be protected so that we are also protected. This is not a situation where, it should be a caste system or a class system as to who gets this vaccine. Everybody is affected. COVID doesn't know about money and tax brackets and race. You are either going to die from it or you are going to survive. And we have over 500,000 people who have died from it because our government at the time did not make that correlation. So we need to take into consideration prisoners and people who work in the prisons when it comes to vaccinations as well, because they're simply people too.
Teron?
No, I agree with everything that Kelly said. I think there's an attitude of dehumanization and brutalization that people feel is okay for people who are incarcerated. And I think what you saw before this legislation was passed is just a manifestation of that. These are still human beings, and these are human beings who deserve health care. These are human beings who deserve respect. And you also, as she said, you have to look at the fact that eventually they're going to be released, and they're going to go into the general population and possibly affect people if they're not taken care of. And you also have to look at situations inside prisons where there's massive overcrowding, mistreatment, that sort of thing. So it's necessary to take care of these people psychologically and physically so we can have people who are somewhat healthy going back out into the world, so we don't have these cycles continuing where people who feel like they're on the lowest on the totem pole feel brutalized, and then they go out and brutalize other people.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom, Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.